Hello and welcome to another episode of Lift the Load. I'm your host, Claire King, and I'm going to be very British and start the week by saying, oh my God, the weather last week was freezing. I felt like all I did was talk about the weather. I wasn't prepared for it. I feel like we're in the depths of winter. I mean, this has absolutely nothing to do with my episode, but just so that you know, this is when I find clients' motivation is down and out, and we have to try really hard to push through. So if you are someone who likes to exercise, I just really want you to know you are not alone if you're finding this time of year tough. So many of us are. I hate going outside to run at this time when it's freezing cold and my lungs are burning. So this is just like a byproduct. This isn't really what the episode's about, but I just thought you should know we're there. We're all feeling it. Anyway, let's actually move on with the episode, which I'm going to be honest, it's a little personal one. It's about perimenopause. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. And lots of people on my Instagram were quite interested about my story. So I thought, I'm going to give you some information, tell you what's going on in my life and how I'm using that knowledge, how it might affect my nutrition and my training going forward. And maybe you can find this helpful too. But before I begin, I want to make one thing really clear. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical profession. And this podcast isn't medical advice. So I just kind of really wanted to go about the fact that I really wanted to share my experience, the research I've done, the conversations I've had with experts, and the decisions I've made around my own health. Because so many women feel confused, dismissed, and completely overwhelmed when their bodies are changing. And if this isn't something that is happening to you right now, I'm sure you know somebody that's happening to. I bet you are aware that it is going to be coming soon. And hopefully not too soon, but it might be. And I just thought if my story helps just one person feel less alone, a bit more informed, then it's worth it. So I really want to start back at the beginning. My symptoms probably started realistically in the summer. And at this time, I was also going through a lot of stress. So anybody that's in my email list or follows my Instagram or works with me as a client will know my nan was very, very poorly. So my mum's mum, she was ill for quite some time. I'd already just lost my dad's mum as well in the April, but she was really poorly. There was a lot of care needed. I watched my granddad look just so sad and so unwell as well with the care that was required. My mum was suffering, my uncle was suffering. Watching that was really hard. Plus it was the summer holidays and I just felt really overwhelmed and my sleep was not great and I was getting these headaches and I just really put it down to stress. However, sadly, my nan passed in August and the reality was Lizzie went back to school and nothing really changed. In fact, things started to get worse. I was waking up in the middle of the night and I would stay awake for hours. I can tell you, I have been awake since 4 a.m. this morning. I gave up at 4:50 and ended up doing loads of work. I just was boshing out some emails ready for my Black Friday. I was program writing. I even did a check-in with someone that needed, was late for check-in yesterday, and I did that, sending them a video. I mean, they had my face first thing in the morning with no makeup, so that wasn't great for them, but maybe they'll live and learn not to hand it in late. Anyway, so the sleep just getting more and worse, mood swings. Like, I'm not talking like a little peeved off. I launched something at the dog the other day. Like, I didn't hit the dog, but I launched it towards his direction to kind of scare him because I lost my absolute shit. This is not me. I don't want to lose my temper. I was saying to Steve, I was like, I was filling in this questionnaire about this when I was handing in my symptoms to the doctor. And I was like, I don't think I've been that bad. And he was like, you have been awful. You shouted at me over a coat. You've done this and this. And I felt absolutely awful that I'm putting the people I love the dearest through such a hard time. There was some like increased anxiety. Periods haven't changed recently, but they've been on weird for years. They're really long, really light. And I just felt just overly off. I mean, brain fog, I couldn't remember single words. Like I did not know the word prescription the other day. I couldn't find it. I was like searching for it in my brain. Like it was awful. And like, I lost the motivation to train. I didn't really love the love of it. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I would have necessarily jumped to the idea of perimenopause. Now, I know that it is flooding the internet. It's everywhere at the moment. Like, women are definitely more empowered in this area. But I am only just 40. Like, I turned 40 in May. So it's not like where most people would consider that maybe these symptoms might start. I mean, I said that to someone and they were like, oh, you're very young. Even my doctor, which I'll get onto, even my doctor was like, oh, you're far too young for this to happen. You're not even nearly 50. However, when I was trying to have a baby, I would miscarry. I miscarried several times. I didn't have a problem getting pregnant. I got pregnant quite easily, but I just couldn't keep the baby. And I was doing the ovulation stick, where you pee on a stick to tell you if you're ovulated. And I was ovulating really close to my periods. And I went to the doctor and they were like, oh, they're so unreliable. And I was like, I don't feel this is right. Like, I think there's something wrong. And they just weren't really interested. And so lucky enough, I went to Wessex Fertility, which is a private one. It wasn't super expensive, but I just wanted to know what was going on. And they were like, no, these sticks are really reliable. And that means that your like progesterone is low. And then they did some scans and stuff. They were like, your uterine lining is not getting thick enough because you're probably not got enough estrogen. And then I carried on, so I didn't have IVF, I didn't need that. But they literally gave me progesterone and estrogen. And then Clomid, so that which was injected to make sure that I ovulated at the right time. And we got pregnant the first time. This is the pregnancy that created my child. I continued to take progesterone and estrogen up to 10 weeks. When you then stop, at that point, I did actually bleed and then went on bed rest for 2 weeks, but everything was okay. But that was the level I was working at that point, and I was 30 at the time, and my estrogen and progesterone were already not high enough to have a baby. So am I really surprised that at 40, 10 years later, that I'm at the perimenopausal stage? Not at all. But my doctor would not consider this. We were having on a telephone consult. Honestly, she palmed me off and told me to take Nytol, and I didn't fight for it. I just felt like I was stupid, like didn't really know my body, that I was naive, and maybe she was right and I should try Nytol. I tried it. I mean, some nights were better than others, but you can't take it long term. And I feel like it was a band-aid just trying to mask the realities of what was going on. So I did look and go to a specialist, and this was a 50-minute consult. We talked about everything. We talked about everything from me using the pill, when I came off of it, the situation, it took me 12 months to have a period, which she said was like completely normal. We talked about my like issues with pregnancy. We talked about all my symptoms, and she just made me feel like I was being listened to, and that my intuition about my own body was right. I'm a fit, healthy individual. I feel really quite connected to my body. I think I kind of know when things are slightly off. And it was so nice to feel validated. And like, she gave options. Not all of them were prescription ones. We talked about different like options. And it really, really just felt like I was being listened to. And I don't think people should have to pay. Some people can't afford to pay. I was just really lucky that like I could at that time. But that's the reality. Our GPs are not experts in this area. And I do think it's going to get better, but it's just hard. So what did I do? Okay, let's talk HRT. Yep, HRT. Let's talk about it. Let's rip that band-aid off. And again, I am not a doctor. I'm sharing my understanding based on my research that I've done and the conversations I've had. So please speak to a qualified professional before you make your own decision. But before I had gone to this appointment, I had done some reading, some research, so that I had my own understanding before going in. And something that really shifted my thinking was hearing Dr. Louise Newson. And she talks about menopause and perimenopause. She kind of says that she believes it's more like a brain condition, not just an ovarian one. Because your ovaries might be slowing down and the symptoms we feel like anxiety, mood swings, memory issues, sleep disruption. They're all driven by the brain struggling without that steady flow of estrogen it's used to functioning with, because there's loads of estrogen or estrogen receptors on the brain. So when estrogen fluctuates or declines, it affects almost every symptom: your mood, your emotional regulation, sleep, cognition, bone density, cardiovascular health, and muscle recovery, which suddenly made my symptoms make a lot more sense. Another huge piece of the puzzle was understanding the difference between body identical HRT and the older synthetic hormones used in the early 2000s study, and the one that terrified everybody. So this was their big women's health initiative, and it caused global panic. But we now kind of realise that potentially it was very deeply flawed. Most participants were already postmenopausal, many over 60. Many had pre-existing health conditions, and the synthetic hormones used are not the ones that are widely available now. Since this study, there's been a lot more research, and we now know that bioidentical estrogen is safer, and therefore the black box warning has been removed on many of the HRT products we now use. The estrogen used now is body identical HRT, which means it is chemically identical to the estrogen your body naturally produces. Your body recognises it and it behaves like your own estrogen. Now, this is nothing like the synthetic estrogen in the pill or in older contraceptives. Those suppress your hormones. So HRT supports them. Once I understood that, I also had spoken to a menopause specialist about how using topical HRT reduced clotting, etc. I really kind of could make my decision much more easily. For me personally, the benefits outweighed the risk. I want to sleep better. I want less anxious spikes, few dramatic mood swings. I want my brain back. I want some stable cognition. And honestly, I just want to feel like myself again. So I've chosen to start HRT at the beginning of my next cycle. And I'm fingers crossed, and I'm feeling confident in my choice, but I also know that I can change my mind at any point. This is my health, my decision, and I am in control. And that kind of brings me on to the whole training, nutrition, lifestyle during perimenopause. So let's talk about it. Everyone on Instagram seems to have an opinion on training and nutrition during this time. And if I'm honest, I think a lot of it is actually misinformation. And it's actually wild that people can try and use this very uncertain time for people to cash in and make people want to buy their fancy training program, which actually is just not needed. There's everywhere you look, there's perimenopause belly workouts or reset plans or specific training for menopause, and it preys on the women who feel scared, exhausted and confused. One of the most important things I've learned is that your muscles are deeply connected to hormones, especially estrogen. You tend to think of estrogen as the period hormone, but it's such a tiny part of its story. You have estrogen receptors in your muscles, your bone, your brain, your heart, your skin, which is why it can feel like perimenopause is a whole body glitch, like not even just around your cycle. So when estrogen starts to fluctuate or decline, a few things happen. Your recovery might be slower. You might lose more muscle more easily. Your joints ache, strength dips, blood sugar becomes a little bit less stable, and your energy feels unpredictable. But this is where strength training becomes essential because you can stop most of those things happening at such a degree simply by doing weight training. So when estrogen reduces, it accelerates something called sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. That's why your body suddenly starts to feel different, even if you are moving and eating in the same ways. Because if you are moving, but it's not necessarily strength training and it's more walking, you're not going to compensate for the decline, because strength training actually compensates. And here is how it does it. It boosts muscle building signals your body loses with fewer estrogen. So estrogen normally helps with muscle protein synthesis, your body's ability to repair and build muscle. When estrogen drops, this becomes less efficient. Strength training, however, sends a powerful build and repair message back to the muscles so it stays strong. It improves muscle quality, not just size. So low estrogen reduces the function of the myosin, which is the protein responsible for contracting your muscles. Whereas strength training, it improves how well those fibers contract, meaning better strength, stability, and power, which is definitely what we want as we age. Low estrogen can lead to a weaker mitochondria, which is your cell's energy powerhouse. Strength training increases both the number and the efficiency of the mitochondria, which improves energy, stamina, and physical resilience. Isn't this all what we want? So, strength training, as well as all of this, also increases bone density, improves balance and stability, supports joints, boosts metabolic rate, helps regulate blood sugar, reduces cravings, improves mood and cognition, and supports long-term independence. The reason that some women gain weight around their middle and feel like their body is changing during midlife is often not the hormones, it's actually the loss of muscle, because that affects insulin sensitivity and metabolic rate. Muscle is protective at every stage of life. But here's the part I really want you to hear. You don't need a perimenopause plan, you need a consistent program you can progress with. So to help with all those things and ensure that you are a fit and fabulous 80-year-old, what you need to do is do 2 to 4 days of strength training. Repeat the same lifts so you get stronger. Eat enough protein to support recovery. Get enough sleep and work on stress management. Obviously, we still want some element of cardiovascular fitness, and you are going to have to adjust what you can do each week depending on what's going on in your life. But there's no cortisol reset, there's no magic hormone rebalancing. It's just smart, personalised strength training that keeps your muscles responsive, which improves everything. And this is why I've created Stronger. I don't change your entire program because your hormones shift. I change it based on how you're sleeping, how stressed you are, how your energy feels, your symptoms, confidence, your actual life. Women thrive when training is consistent, scalable, personalised, and it's not restrictive or reactive. Your hormones might be changing, but you are not powerless. Strength training gives you back control of your body, your energy, and your long-term health. And let's be honest, a lot of those things that we're dealing with, like lack of sleep, fatigue, stress, these are things that we're dealing with as mums anyway. Yes, your programs will change as you develop in the gym, as you gain more strength, as your life changes, but the fundamentals will stay the same. And whilst we're debunking some of the other things that are around on the internet, let's be clear, hormones play a role, but they're not in the catastrophic way that TikTok makes it sound. Belly fat during perimenopause is most commonly linked to loss of lean muscle and reduced metabolic rate and lower physical activity. And this is often not in the perimenopause stage. This is in the menopause and beyond, around 60. And like I've said before, this doesn't have to be the way if we have got things in place, like weight training and eating correctly with enough protein. And again, your cravings might feel out of whack at this time. it's not the estrogen that's disappeared. It's not disappearing overnight. It's not that a sudden flick. It's the fact that your sleep's worse, your stress is higher, your emotional regulation dips. And these are the things that are causing those cravings. And when we start to realise this, we feel less powerless and realise there are some things that are still in our control. Yes, we can't control those dips in our hormones. We can't necessarily decide when this all happens in our life, but we can make sure that we are doing the best we can with what we control. Where does that leave me now? Honestly, I'm very much in the process. Some weeks I feel great, some weeks I feel like I've been hit by a bus, some days I question everything, and other days I feel completely myself again. But I'm committed to tracking my symptoms and how they might respond to HRT once I finally start, continually prioritising strength training, keeping my protein high, walking daily, managing my stress proactively, and not letting one bad week convince me that nothing works anymore. And by understanding has already made such a huge difference to me mentally. I don't feel broken anymore. I feel more informed. And I want other women to feel like that too. I'll keep sharing updates, and I'll be honest and unfiltered, over on my Instagram as I navigate this. So you can come and check me out on claire.coachingkings. And if you're listening and you're going through something similar, you're not alone. I hope today's episode helped you feel more grounded, more empowered, and a little less overwhelmed. And if it has been helpful, you could do me a huge favour. Like, subscribe, review, even if you just click on those stars, it would do me a huge favour as a small podcaster. And if you're thinking about starting strength training to help support you in every stage of your life, just to let you know that anyone that listens to my podcast gets a £50 discount on the first month. If you look in the show notes below, you will see the code, which is podcast50, and you can try it for £22.50. It's personalised. We're going to have a chat. We're going to have a Zoom call. It's not about just any Tom, Dick and Harry. It's about you. So if this is something you're interested in, come and check it out. And if you've got any questions, hit me up in the DMs, or you can leave a comment below. Anyway, have a great couple of weeks, and I will see you all again soon.